Hey folks, this is Kalani. Patch 12.1 is almost here, and you probably already know about the major features coming in the patch, like the new zone, the new raid and dungeon, and all of the new seasonal content. But this patch is huge, probably bigger than most content updates we've seen in a while, and it includes a lot of smaller but still very important updates that will shape your World of Warcraft experience over the next year or longer. So let's go over 31 important small changes coming in patch 12.1 that you need to know about. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Let's start by going over some key changes to gameplay in patch 12.1. As we head into the new season, we'll have a new crafting spark to collect to fuel higher item level crafts and upgrades, the Spark of Tides. But one important change for 12.1 is that we'll have at least 3 different weekly quests to obtain your spark. There's one in the new Coiled Isle zone to take part in the Curse Surge events. There's another one in Silvermoon called Trailing Xalatath. This one asks you to collect Fading Void Whispers, which can drop from dungeons, delves, treasures, and dangerous monsters, which probably means rare mobs. And then we have the Unity Against the Void weekly quest, which was the main source of sparks for Season 1. That works in the exact same way. You get to choose between a few different content types to earn your spark. You can still only get 1 spark per week unless you fall behind, then the catch-up mechanic will kick in. So this just means you get to pick and choose which quest you want to complete for that week's spark without being pushed into doing one activity specifically. 2 of these weekly quests also reward an item that eventually unlocks a new campsite for your character select screen. The Unity Against the Void quest rewards you with a Silvermoon Citizen's emblem, and when you get 4 of them you unlock the Silvermoon campsite, which I'm sure every Blood Elf will want to get their hands on, and then the Trailing Xalatath weekly quest rewards you with a Void Vestige, and after you get 4 of those you'll unlock the Voidstorm campsite, which is the same shot as the other one of Silvermoon, but you get the massive Voidstorm and the Void energy in the background. That's going to be a stark reminder of your midnight adventures for sure. This patch also makes quite a few changes to how dungeons are going to play out, with the main goal of shifting some responsibility from healers and tanks over to the DPS. The first change is to monster health. Mobs will have more health in general when compared to Season 1, so it's going to be more important for the DPS to be bringing their A game. The lower your group's DPS, the longer everything survives, the more mechanics you then have to deal with, and the higher the chance of you wiping. More health is a bit of a boring way to try and address that issue, but we've actually seen some blanket health percent increases for dungeon mobs throughout the PTR, so just keep that in mind as you hop into Mythic Plus in Season 2. The other change that tries to force DPS to play better is having higher priority targets and more damage checks. So you'll have to be focusing on the right targets at the right time, making good use of cooldowns to eke out extra damage to make sure the really dangerous mobs die quickly and don't get their major casts off. Quite a lot of interruptible casts are also being changed from being flat damage, which just stresses out your healers more, to debuffs to damage output or mobility. A great example is at the start of the Altar of Fangs dungeon. These mobs here have a cast that, if not interrupted, applies a haste debuff to your entire party. So missing a cast doesn't just make your healer work harder, it's going to reduce your group's damage throughput quite significantly, making those interrupts incredibly important if you want to see big damage numbers in your DPS meters. The dev team are expanding the updated telegraph visuals to cone attacks and line attacks, so in this patch any new cone or line attacks should have these easy to read visuals. Any older dungeon included in the seasonal rotation should have updated visuals as well. Older content might not be fully updated, but as long as these clear markers are maintained moving forward, this is going to be a great change. Abilities having non-distinct borders has always led to complaints about whether or not someone was in an ability that they just got one-shot by, so having clearly defined borders and visuals should help you dodge these spells more reliably. I really hope the dev team continues to improve visibility for all abilities. In my opinion, if you have to guess where an ability is going to hit, that is a failure from a visual standpoint. Having telegraphed abilities that are easy to see and read isn't a bad thing. Another small change that is a huge quality of life improvement is that the auction house will now save your most recent filters when you close and reopen the auction house. So if you search for potions on the left hand side and also tick the current expansion only filter and then close the auction house, when you next open it, those filters will be saved so you can just hit search again and get right back to what you were doing. This is going to be great for anyone who uses the auction house a lot. Searching for something on the auction house, then closing the auction house to find something in your bags or profession window or just double check something, only to have to set your search filters again can be quite annoying, so this change should make using the default auction house much smoother. These auction house changes may be useful if you're wanting to pick up some new consumables in patch 12.1. We'll have a new health potion, the concentrated Silvermoon health potion, which is just a direct upgrade, healing for 360,000 on the lower tier and 420,000 on the higher tier, where the previous potion healed for 200,000 on the lower and 240,000 on the higher. So not only will these potions heal for almost twice the amount, but buying the higher tier potions might actually be worth it in Season 2. There are also some new combat potions. Liquid Luster gives you a stacking verse buff that lasts for about a minute total, which could be useful for any classes that require a bit of ramp up to get their damage going. And then Alluring Nostrum gives your spells and abilities a chance to deal extra AoE damage, but it also slows you by 15%, stacking up to 5 times. So that could create some very bad situations quite quickly if you happen to proc these bonuses back to back. These new potion recipes can be purchased from the new Renown faction, Zul'Jara's Forces, in patch 12.1. This patch also changes how the catalyst works when you convert a piece of gear into tier set gear. Previously, the conversion would override any stats on the gear you're converting, and the result would always be the same. Going forward, the conversion retains the stats of the gear that you're using, so you can no longer use the catalyst to change the secondary stats on a piece of gear. It now simply slaps the tier set bonus effect on top of what's already there. An important advantage here is that you won't lose your best in slot stats if you already have them, and the conversion keeps tertiary stats and any special cantrip effects on your gear. There are a lot of those kinds of special effects in the new raid especially, which means you can get that gear, turn it into tier set, benefit from your set bonuses, and you get to keep the special effect. That is going to let you create some very powerful pieces of gear in Season 2. Another change to a key weekly system you need to know about is the option to pick up a Nebulous Void Core bonus roll from your weekly vaults in Season 2. These bonus rolls give you an extra chance to get a decent gear upgrade if your vault rewards themselves aren't useful. The important part here is that you can only choose the bonus roll option if you have at least 3 rewards unlocked in the vault. If you only have 1 or 2, the bonus roll will be grayed out. So it's even more important to get at least 3 rewards unlocked in the vault every week in patch 12.1 and Season 2. Now, one change that will affect anyone still leveling up is a large reduction to the amount of experience gained from exploring areas or zones. That's been reduced by 60%. It shouldn't impact most players too much. It was quite a small portion of your experience while leveling up after all, but it will significantly nerf the Earthen Racial, which provided extra XP from exploring. There were even leveling methods that could take you from level 10 all the way to level 90 in under 3 hours just by flying around and exploring the world on an earthen character. That will no longer be viable when this patch goes live, and exploring just won't yield as much experience as it used to. On a lighter note, hunters will finally be able to use enchant illusions on their ranged weapons. So if you are feeling a bit left out because you couldn't make your bows or guns glow with sparkles or vines or whatever your favourite colour happens to be, that will no longer be the case in patch 12.1. Now, the last gameplay related change I want to talk about is a new borrowed power system that has changed quite a few times over the course of the PTR. As you complete certain kinds of content, you'll be looting these corrosive souls. You can use these souls to unlock special powers at the Altar of Corrosion, a new feature that you'll come across in the Coiled Isle. Each power costs 8 souls to unlock, but once you've unlocked it, you can enable or disable it at any time. You can only have 1 power active at a time until you unlock 8 powers total, at which point you can enable 2 powers at a time. This will provide solo content players with a significant power spike, so as you collect corrosive souls in patch 12.1, make sure you're using them to unlock these powerful new effects. Patch 12.1 also introduces quite a lot of user interface updates, starting with a revamped friends list. It looks totally different from live servers. It's larger and more modern looking, with tabs on the right hand side instead of at the top or bottom of the page. You can add various tags to your friends to note what content types they like to take part in or what roles they like to fill, and then you can search and filter based on those tags to quickly find friends who might want to join you in whatever content you're trying to run. Coordinates will now be included on the world map as default, so you can see your cursor coordinates and your player coordinates at the bottom left corner. This makes it much easier to find locations if you're looking for something specific, especially if you're searching for something on Wowhead or another fan site. I'm surprised it took this long to be included in the base game, but now you won't need an add-on just to see coordinates on the map. And if you're not interested in seeing them on the map at all, or you have an add-on that just does it better, you can turn them off in the interface menu. The Cooldown Manager has seen a few upgrades. You'll now be able to track trinkets, potions, and racial abilities on your Cooldown Manager bar, so you can keep track of those important items and spells much easier. This should also make it easier for add-ons to track them as well, especially if they're tapping into the Cooldown Manager to fuel their functions. The ping system has a lot of updates too, starting with the option to ping specific things, so you can change between pinging just the environment, just units, or both. This makes it much easier to ping the right location on the floor instead of getting stuck on characters moving around or vice versa. You will also now be able to ping certain abilities or items, especially ones that have a cooldown, to let your party members know when your damage cooldowns are ready for those big pulls, when you're out of defensives, or when your healing potions or health stones are on cooldown, for example. This also works for your health bar, so if you're getting pretty low and you're worried your healer hasn't noticed, you can ping your health and that will appear in chat. I do worry this will just devolve into the I need healing spam that was so prevalent in Overwatch, but surely WoW players wouldn't abuse these new tools, right? There are also a few new options for the default nameplates. You'll be able to show just the name of the player instead of the entire nameplate if that's something you prefer. You can use the class color for the names if you want to, and you can toggle whether or not their server is included in the nameplate as well. More options like this are always nice, and the default nameplates are getting fleshed out quite nicely at this point. We also have some changes to the edit mode. You'll now be able to move raid warnings, so you can place those where you see fit, and the raid and party frames now support the frame size settings that have been available for other unit frames, so you can scale them up to be much larger than they were before. Another cool user interface update comes in for the achievement window. We'll now have a back button which lets you quickly navigate meta achievements much easier. So when you click on a meta achievement, which is made up of other achievements, you can click on the individual achievement to get more specific information about them, and then hit the back button to go straight back to the meta achievement you were just looking at, instead of needing to search for it again. This will let you go back and forth quite quickly to see what achievement might require of you. And then we'll also start to see various user interface options and settings become account-wide, so you don't have to set things up for each new character that you create. This is starting with auto-loot, so your auto-loot setting will be account-wide in patch 12.1, which is definitely a nice change, and hopefully as new content updates are introduced, more settings will become account-wide instead of character-specific. Moving on, the housing system has some huge updates in this patch, like the long-anticipated addition of blueprints, but there are some smaller changes coming too. We'll have a new button that lets you reset your entire house, so you don't have to remove things bit by bit. You can reset absolutely everything, or just your interior, or just the exterior if you'd rather work on one thing at a time. Blueprints let you save and load your house in various states of completion, and it ensures you never lose anything you've built. So having the reset button will save you some time if you want to start with a blank slate. We'll also see the addition of new artisanal rooms. There are 4 new options for each racial theme by the looks of things, and they're going to cost you 50 community coupons each. Some of these rooms are amazing, like the Silvermoon Loft Study, which has a spiral staircase and a huge balcony overlooking the room. Having these kinds of pre-built rooms will make it much easier to make something cool in the housing feature without needing to be a crazy creative whiz kid yourself. The dye system in housing is also getting overhauled, so instead of needing to create an item for each individual shade of colour available to you, dyes have been condensed into general colour categories. So to dye something midnight blue, sky blue, shiny blue, or weird blue, those aren't real dye names, but you get the idea, you just need a blue dye item. That facilitates dyeing items any shade of blue. The same thing goes for every other colour, so instead of having to carry around 50 or more dye items if you want to have access to all of the dyes available, it's all condensed into just 9. That makes the dye system much easier to understand and use for all players. And then the last small change, somewhat related to the housing system, is for prey decor items. All of the prey decor items from Season 1 will be available in Season 2, with a few extras thrown in for good measure. The update is for the cost of these items. Almost everything is being at least halved, so you won't have to spend quite as much anguish to collect your prey decor items after this patch goes live. And then to round out this video, there are quite a lot of smaller changes for PvP. To start with, the training grounds feature that let you fight against bots in battlegrounds is being expanded to arenas, so you can jump into those smaller PvP skirmishes against bots, which should make it easier to get into the groove of arenas, learn all of the maps and their hidden mechanics, and how your character performs in smaller group engagements. That should give you a great on-ramp for trying out PvP against actual players if you want to. There's going to be a new penalty debuff coming for rated solo queues, so if you decline the group invite for whatever reason, you won't be able to queue up again for a short period of time. That time gets longer for each subsequent queue pop that you miss, and it could end up being quite lengthy if you decline queues again and again. The penalty also applies to your entire account, so you won't be able to skirt around it by playing a different character. This change is to try and prevent win trading and pre-made groups joining what are supposed to be solo queue experiences. Healing in Battlegrounds will become quite a bit harder due to a flat 20% reduction to all healing received in Battlegrounds in patch 12.1. I guess healers are proving to be a bit too powerful in large-scale PvP scenarios, so with this nerf in place, it should be easier to take down your foes, even if they seem to have 5 pocket healers at all times. Something else you want to be aware of if you are an avid PvPer is that many slow and snare effects have been nerfed quite considerably. This is a very, very long list, but it's safe to assume that if an ability slows your enemy's movement speed, it won't be quite as strong of an effect in patch 12.1. Very few abilities slow by more than 50% with these changes in place, so just make sure you either read through the patch notes or read your abilities tooltips after the patch goes live so you aren't taken by surprise. Speaking of crowd control, the duration of the diminishing returns on repeated crowd control effects will be extended from 16 seconds up to 20 seconds, which means you'll have to wait longer before you can stun lock your foes again. This will just lead to players spending less time in any form of crowd control, which should make for a more enjoyable PvP experience. And then there's one more update for crowd control effects. Anyone afflicted by fear or disorient effects will no longer be affected by knockbacks, which seems a bit odd. Just because you're cowering for your life, why does that mean a typhoon wouldn't throw you off a ledge? It seems odd, but it's probably important to know about if you like to combo these crowd controls to make creative use of cliff edges or bottomless pits. But that's all of the smaller changes coming in patch 12.1 and Season 2 of Midnight that you need to know, so that's it for this video. What are you most looking forward to in patch 12.1 or Season 2? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see their names on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.